Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, depending on where and when you're watching this broadcast. I'm Thomas Fessler, my friends, and this is Disclosure tonight. Happy Monday, November 11th, as we're 2 days, less than a day and a half, let's just call it out, before the next UFO hearing. Let's get to it and kick past this intro and come together as a community. Let's get to it, have some fun. Before we get there, you know how it goes, folks. Let's go ahead and welcome in our audience, because you know what? They deserve it, because the audience is the star of this show, my friends. Let's go ahead and welcome in. Let's first go ahead and take a look and see who the hell is out there. All right, participants in the chat. Who in the heck is out there? We have AK, AVM, all the way from India. Eli McGinnis is here. Firefly, Frankenstein, Jan, J-Cat, Kathy, Kelly Burrow, and those piercing blue eyes. Good to see you, Kelly. King Bull's around along with Metal Gaming. Good to see you, Martin. Metal, Mr. Catfish 2100, Europe. Niles guy is here along with Paul DeMond. Shelley Montgomery, Stephen Forbes Jr. Super Unknown just made it. How about that? Let's take a look who else is here. We have Twohead 666, another friend from Australia. It's UFO Busters at UFO Show Australia. And wait, Victoria Nance and Yankee 58. Oh, well, how about that? That would make you about 66 years old, Big Yankee 58. If you're either 58, yeah, I'll say you were born in 58. Final answer. On that note, it's not just about the chat sometimes, but sometimes, my friend, it's about the people in the back. Who in the heck do we have there? Let's go ahead and take a look. Well, we've got a full house today, my friends. Our first person we have there is all the way from the great country of Thailand. Let's go ahead and welcome in Corporal Abe 311B. How's it going, Abe? Apparently not. Let's pass Corporal Abe and move on to our Corporal Abe. You there? Welcome, my friend.
Yeah, I said I'm doing well. Thanks for having me this Veterans Day, Thomas.
Good to have you, my friend. Great to have you. Also, coming to us from the great state of Wisconsin, the place you ought to be. Let's welcome in our remote viewing targeter, Laura Campbell. How's it going, Laura?
Going great, Thomas. We just gave you a little money for all the hard work you do. Never enough.
Thank you very well. $19.99, yes, for years and years only for the price of $19.99. We've got a wonderful super chat coming in from Laura Campbell. Thank you, Laura. Appreciate that, my friend. I didn't even see that, but thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you all. We got to turn to our next friend in the back. We've got our man coming from the country where all the U's are silent. Let's go ahead and welcome in Mr. Michael Sokoloff. How's it going, Michael?
It's going good, Thomas. We got a good show tonight, and we're going to have an even better show on
Oh,
Wednesday.
my God. I've got a book report I have to read tonight, but thank you for coming in tonight, Michael. Absolutely wonderful to have you here. Let's turn the world upside down and put our sights on Australia, where we have a friend who's near Sydney, not Queensland. Let's welcome in our very own none of your business, but it's actually Susan Ford. How's it going, Susan?
It sinks in, does it?
No, I'm not near Queensland. What did you say?
Yeah, don't put me near that. Yeah, no. All right. Yeah, no, great to be here. Looking forward to the show.
You must have some really good relatives in Queensland.
No.
Who do you not want to be associated with?
No, actually, I have a niece that moved up there, which is really sad, but I really do love her. She's adorable.
Yeah, you have your friends moving, your relatives moving to Queensland would be like relatives from here moving down to California.
Exactly.
Good luck for them.
Yeah, it's terrible.
You better believe it. Thanks for coming in today, Susan. And, I think that's about everyone on that note. Well, let's turn it off and put our focuses on our friend off on the East Coast. Mike, Disclosure, how was your day?
Busy. As everyone knows from the title of the show, there was a lot of reports that came out for the upcoming hearing, and we were focusing on that. And I also had to deal with, because it's Veterans Day and everything is off of school and work, I had to deal with family and household stuff on top of stuff for the show. So,
but at least you got an escape to head out to your favorite location off-site, better known as ShopRite.
Yeah, at least I got a break from all of the stress that normally goes on in a household. So, yep,
Yeah.
take it where you can get it. But yeah,
Oh, yeah.
this is going to be a hell of a show tonight.
Oh,
of the
I
upcoming hearing.
know. Oh, I
And we're going to
know.
have all the testimony, and we have a preview for our audience of this hearing before it actually takes place. Everything that's going to occur, we're going to cover here tonight. So there'll be no mysteries on Wednesday for anybody.
Yeah, no mysteries. It's a nothing burger. Just calling it out.
Well, we can cover it and report on our it's hard to get the words out. Our unbiased opinion of the actual
what he said.
testimony and actual testimony and hearing. But yep,
Yeah.
it'll be fun.
Oh, you're telling me. You're telling me it'll be a laugh and a half. Well,
It will be. Listen, we keep our sense of humor, right?
oh,
So,
we do. Yes,
we're
Thomas
serious about
Fessler.
not
Good
being
news
serious.
on the new National Security Director. Yes, we've got to go, and Mike Wallace is going to be our next National Security Advisor. He's the guy
Right
who
out of
said,
Florida.
yes, we have to start worrying about funding to secure our border and stop sending all the money to Ukraine. Europe can start paying their fair share. Not only that, he is a supporter of disclosure, isn't he, Mike?
He absolutely is, Thomas. Which, for the first time, it seems like we have a cabinet that's shaping up that is looking to move forward on the truth.
Told you so.
Right.
I've been saying it for a while, and people are we're gonna have to wait and see. And it's like, no, just go with it. It's gonna be great.
It's going to be interesting. That's, to say the least, is going to be the case. I can't wait to see how it ships up.
Yeah. Absolutely.
We'll
absolutely.
see. But now we have this hearing that's coming up that we're going to cover tonight. And there should be some interesting things in there, right?
Well, first thing we're going to start off today, since he is the man, the legend, Lou Elizondo, we're going to start off the written testimony of Lou Elizondo, not by Lou Elizondo, but of Lou Elizondo. Let's get into that one. Take it for what it's worth, how you want to put the dots together on that one, my fair audience. For the U.S. House Committee on Oversight and Accountability, let's get into this. This is the short one.
Oh, it is.
As far as the actual length of this of the documents we have to go. Shellenberger's like 14 pages. Lou is like 3.
Right, so this would be the appetizer before the main course, right?
Oh, you bet, my friend Mike. Let me put it up here so I can be looking straight into the camera on this one. Here we go. So, greetings, Chairwoman Mace, Grothman, and ranking members Cannoli. That's not how you spell cannoli, is it, though, Mike?
It isn't, but
No.
we'll ignore the typos.
And
move forward.
Garcia and members of the committee. It's my honor and privilege to testify before you on the issue of unidentified anomalous phenomena, formerly known as UFOs, on behalf of our brave men and women in uniform and across the intelligence community, as well as my fellow Americans who have awaited this day. Thank you for your leadership on this important matter. Let me be clear. Remember, these words are coming from Lou Elizondo. UAP are real. Advanced technology is not made by our government or any other government are monitoring sensitive military installations around the globe. Remember, folks, this is a global phenomenon. Furthermore, the U.S. is in possession of UAP technologies as some of our adversaries. I believe we are in the midst of a multi-decade secretive arms race, one funded by the misallocated taxpayer dollars and hidden from our elected representatives and oversight bodies, which is against the law. For many years, I was entrusted with protecting some of our nation's most sensitive programs. In my last position, I managed a special access program on behalf of the White House and National Security Council. As such, I appreciate the need to protect certain sensitive intelligence and military information. In other words, national security above all else. I consider my oath to protect secrets as sacred and will always put the safety of the American people first. What about humanity? With that said, I also understand the consequences of excessive secrecy and stovepiping. Nowhere was this more important than in the aftermath of 9/11, many of which us remember all too well. I believe that American greatness depends on three elements: a watchful Congress, a respectful executive branch, and an informed public. Responsive, let's just call it a executive branch that has been covering this up like I've been calling out before many others out there in this arena. Over the last decade and a half, I learned that certain UAP programs were and are operating without any of these elements. Although much of my government work on the UAP subject still remains classified, bring out the truth. Excessive secrecy has led to government misdeeds against loyal civil servants, military personnel, and the public, all to hide the fact we are, MOCA, are not alone in the cosmos. A small cadre within our government involved in the UAP topic has created a culture of suppression and intimidation that I have personally been a victim to, along with many of my former colleagues. This includes unwarranted criminal investigations, harassment, and the efforts to destroy one's credibility. You know what's missing from here, Mike?
What's
Death
that,
threats.
Thomas?
Threats against his life.
The DODIG complaint that he filed. Correct. Right, that was left out.
Absolutely. Most Americans would be shocked to learn that the Pentagon's very own public affairs office, headed by Susan Goff, openly employs a professional psychological operations officer, Susan Goff, and the singular point of contact for any UAP-related inquiries from citizens and the media. This is unacceptable. Remember, she wrote papers on disinformation and misinformation. Many of my former colleagues and I have provided classified testimony to both the Department of Defense and the Intelligence Community Inspector General. Many of us have subsequently been targeted by this cabal with threats to our careers, our security clearances, and even our lives. There we go, folks. This is not hyperbole, but a genuine fact. And this is wrong. To fix these problems, I propose 3 principal actions. First, Congress and the president should create a single point of contact responsible for a whole of government approach to the UAP issue. And Mike, from the sounds of it, we're never going to get this from the Democrats, but it sounds like this is a foundational property of the new Trump administration.
It does, but again, let's point out for our audience, this is not a political party.
No, it isn't. However, I will override that and say Democrats have had their time. They have had 4 years, and the president has, well, we're trying to find something, but we can never not even find daylight. He's had his chance. While we could say it's bipartisan nature, our Democrat-run presidency of the United States of America has failed to do anything to move disclosure forward. And the only hope we have today as citizens of the United States of America, moreover the world, the only chance we have currently to bring out the truth from the United States is President Trump and his new administration. Just saying, I know people are on one side of the fence or the other, Mike, but I am going to take a stand. It's the reality of where we're at. And tons of people have put out podcasts saying about presidential disclosure, where we're at, where we're heading to. I am not going to take the murky waters of trying to play both sides of the coin. I'm going to call this out as it is.
Okay, but we just have to make sure that everybody knows that this is not partisan politics.
No, it's not. We've got a
bipartisan
president for the entire country, and we have a president who's going to be willing to move forward on disclosure, right?
And the only thing, the goal with all of that is the disclosure itself, not the politics.
Oh, bingo. I didn't say politics. We've got someone in the executive branch, which you're going to hear later. That is the point of the cover-up going on, for that matter.
Exactly. Good point.
Let's go ahead and move on. To fix these problems, I propose 3 principal actions. First, Congress and the President should create a single point of contact responsible for the whole of government approach to the UAP issue. Currently, the White House covers it up along with the CIA, NASA, and the Pentagon. Department of Energy and others play a role, but no one seems to be in charge, leading unchecked power to corruption. Come on, Lou. You work for the executive branch. You know they're in charge of this. No one seems to be in charge. It's the executive branch where you work for. Let's be honest. Move on. Second, we need a national UAP strategy that will promote transparency and help restore the American public's trust at a time when the public's trust is at an all-time low on our Democrat-run government. This strategy should include a whole-of-government approach, including the academic and scientific communities, the private sector, and our international partners and allies. Third, Congress should create, let's get rid of should and say must create, a protected environment so whistleblowers desperate to do the right thing can come forward without fear. Well, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, weren't there a bunch of whistleblower protections put in as part of the NDAA in the past that were directed by the disclosure movement?
There are. You're correct about that.
So
But
who in
there
the
are
hell did they
still-
have write them, and why did they screw up so bad?
Well, that's a different story and it's a different conversation. But the whistleblowers still feel that there are obstacles that threaten their safety, the safety of their family, and their livelihood after coming forward.
I know,
And
but
that
that's why
hasn't
we
been
had all those
resolved.
whistleblower protections that were put in place a year and a half ago.
Right, that's correct. But it's not ideal, not perfect, and there are a ton of whistleblowers that have still, as of yet, to come forward.
Well, there were
because
40
of it.
that Grush named, 40, of which there were also ones that were witnesses who wouldn't play along.
Yeah, they're hostile witnesses, but that's part of the initial 40. But we also are now aware, due to Michael Shellenberger and his report, that there are additional whistleblowers that have also come forward that are speaking out about this program, Immaculate Constellation.
Yeah. We'll get there. As it currently stands, these whistleblowers suffer because of stigma, a code of silence, and concerns about retaliation. A code of silence? You mean national security? These whistleblowers should be encouraged to come forward in ways to protect them against any forms of retaliation. Policies and procedures should ensure that protection. And for those who refuse to cooperate, it's up to the members of the committee and other lawmakers to wield their subpoena powers against hostile witnesses and prevent additional government funding to those UAP efforts that remain hidden from congressional oversight. Now, that was part of NDAA, and that did pass, Mike.
No, you're right. It did. I agree. The problem is, and we've talked about this many, many times here on the show, the subpoena power would require a permanent select UAP committee, which as of yet has not been put into power. They don't have that mechanism.
Well, we don't
to be
have
able
a
to move
select
forward.
committee because Mike Johnson, who's the head of the House of Representatives, refused it and shut it down.
That's correct. But even if we did, let's say hypothetically for a second, one was in place right here, right now, today. We also have talked about on the show, like Dr. James Lukatsky, who said that even if he was subpoenaed and was testifying under oath, that he would not be required to tell the truth, right?
No, he would be required to tell the truth. He said that he would lie.
Because he's legally allowed to lie under the 1947 National Security Act. So he would get away with
But
that.
if
because
there
that's
are
what's in
different
place.
things that are out there with regards to things they're trying to enforce and they are doing it for a crime that has been committed, those aren't enforceable. And it sounds like the kind of stuff Lukatsky was involved in and the kind of stuff that he saw and he was involved in not being reported to Congress, that's actually a crime.
But then we get into some really complicated areas because we know there are 3 branches that are supposed to be able to have a ability to make sure one branch doesn't rule over the others. We have the executive, the legislative, and the judicial.
And the
Problem-
executive has not been playing along, period. And
No.
those are the ones that need to be either they step up or we need to go ahead and take, the correct action against them.
That's correct. But the point that I'm bringing up is because of the three separated branches of government, when you have a rogue element like the executive branch that has been hiding this from Congress and the public for decades, if this was to be brought to the judicial branch and to the Supreme Court, the one exemption to that is the 1947 National Security Act, because the Supreme Court stated that any matters involving national security, they will not rule on. Which
Yeah, I know. All I have to say is it is
the
the biggest bullshit excuse because they can claim anything as national security, Mike. Just saying.
No, you're right. And we've
And
talked
put
about
everything
that as well.
under the guise of national security and say national security above anything else is just perpetuating the cover-up.
It is. And it's also the main loophole that they've been hiding behind this entire time.
Well, let's hope the President of the United States, our new president-elect, is going to make a difference on this, because I think that's truthfully the only chance we have on disclosure.
Well, something has to be done to completely remove what they've been hiding behind the entire time. So until something like that occurs, and it needs to come from the top down, has to come out of the executive branch. If it doesn't, it won't happen. And you and I have talked to the public and the audience about that regularly. So that's where we are right now.
Yeah.
And it looks like his testimony, Lou, is making a point about that.
Yeah. Well, let's finish off this testimony, shall we? In closing, we as Americans have never been afraid of a challenge. In fact, we thrive on them. Whether it's eradicating polio or going to the moon, we don't run from a challenge. We take it head on, except in the case of UAPs. To the incoming administration and Congress, I say to you, and by the way, Mike, congratulations. The House of Representatives has been seized by the Republicans today.
Oh, very nice.
So we have the House, the Senate, and the executive branch.
So it's a mandate.
Oh, yeah.
Which means they should be able to pass anything that they want to moving forward for the next 2 years.
We could say Congress can pass whatever they want, but it's not going to go beyond the farts coming out of their ass, because let's be honest with it. The only way they're going to be able to get anything out is to have a executive branch that's going to play along. Congress is not going to be able to get anything done, period. I'll put it there. They haven't been able to get anything done. How long have we been having hearings for? Where has this gone? Absolutely nowhere. The only way we're going to get forward is if we have an executive branch that plays along, and I think we're there.
If we have the House, the Senate, and the executive branch pushing for an agenda
House and
moving
Senate
forward,
aren't going to do shit. It's only the executive branch that's going to make stuff happen. At least that's my take on it.
Well, look, the legislative branch, meaning the House and the Senate, both have to legislate the changes that they want to enact, and then the executive branch signs off on it.
No, the executive branch can go ahead and actually sign executive orders to release this information and bring it forward. We don't need Congress to act if the president is in cahoots, because it's his office. He runs the executive branch. He's over the DOD. He's over the intelligence communities. He's over all of them. And if he wants that information to come out, he can bring it out without Congress having to even sweat at all.
But with the mandate that's currently in place with both the Senate and the House, it shouldn't be a challenge at all.
There's no mandate. They've taken office, but the truth of the matter is the only way, at least I see, we're going to get this out is going to come from the executive branch. We have more on this later. But Congress and House and Senate, remember, we had House and Senate aligning before on this, and where did it get us? Where have we gone in the last 3 years? Nowhere. So it has to come from the executive branch. At least that's my take on it. Let's move on. I say to you, we need an immediate public transparency, which sounds like our government, our executive branch is willing to give. And this hearing is an important step on that journey. If we approach the UAP topic in the same way as our Americans have met other challenges, we can restore the faith in our government institutions together. We can usher in an era of accountable government and scientific discovery. I believe that we as Americans can handle the truth. I also believe that the world deserves the truth. Thank you, esteemed members of Congress, for your time today, and it's profoundly appreciated by many. Where's the statements, though, about that Lou was supposed to be talking about Roswell?
Well,
There's nothing in here. I mean, they may ask questions about it because of his book, but there's nothing in his statement about it.
Well, is going to be the focus, to be honest with you.
I thought it was going to be the focus of his statement too, but not one word. You know, this is just like not a lot there.
No, it seems a little light. I would tend to agree, but it's up to the audience as far as what their thoughts on
Yeah, I'd like to meet the author of that document.
it.
All right, next one we have coming in. Now, this one is probably the big one, Mike. This one's coming from Michael Shellenberger. Lou was big text, bold, not even 3 full pages long. Shellenberger's. 14.
You know what? Listen, I got a quick thought. Before we get into the nuts and bolts of the testimony at this hearing, let's take a quick detour. Pull up the post I put up today about Tim Gallaudet. There are some key points that we can cover very quickly.
Gallaudet has nothing new to say. Nothing. Period.
Well, we could cover what he talked about.
We can get into that.
Mellon.
I'd rather get into Shellenberger because if you've heard anything about Gallaudet in the past, Mike, there's nothing new about Gallaudet that's being said. It's everything that he's said everywhere else.
No, I agree, but he does shine a light on Arrow. That'll take about 2 minutes of our time. And
go ahead, just jump
Mellon
into it, my friend. Go ahead, jump into it.
Okay. I just wanted to point out.
Well, if you want to get into Gallaudet before we get into the money pit, let's make it quick because I've got 14 pages to get through.
Yes, sir. I am well aware. I just wanted to, for the audience, point out some of the key points that Tim Gallaudet will be testifying at the hearing about. And I think it's interesting that he is highlighting that when he was preparing for this hearing, Chris Mellon contacted him to seek his assistance in sharing with Congress the details of a case involving satellite imagery of UAP from 2017 that has still not been shared with Congress. He has also brought the specifics to the attention of Arrow. That's Christopher Mellon.
So he's referencing videos that are 7 years old.
Correct.
Of a potential USO kind of thing that was caught on video. Are you telling me that there's no other videos that are out there besides the one that Christopher Mellon is bringing up from 7 years ago?
No, I'm sure there are plenty.
Oh, I know.
And we'll hear about that with the testimony that we're going to cover today. But the point that Christopher Mellon made is that there was this satellite imagery from 2017 that has not been shared with Congress. And he brought the specifics of that right to Arrow. And then Tim Gallaudet goes on to say that he has concerns about Arrow, beginning with them explaining the inaccuracies and incompleteness of Arrow's first historical records report, so that the Congress can understand, A, if Arrow is failing to meet its congressional mandate, and B, under what authority Arrow has conducted this and other examples of disinformation. I say this as a first-hand witness to such disinformation. During a meeting with the then acting Arrow director and his senior staff earlier this year, I was the object of an hours-long influence operation which attempted to convince me of the validity of the severely flawed historical records report. Question well-known UAP reports such as the USS Nimitz Tic Tac encounter and disparage several former government authorities who have published and spoken publicly about their knowledge of U.S. government UAP programs. If Arrow is attempting to repeat the illegal and unethical DoD disinformation efforts involving UAP in the past, Congress should be gravely concerned. And that's directly from Tim Gallaudet. He makes some valid points about Arrow as an organization as a whole and disinformation that we've been getting directly from them. So I thought it was something that we needed to cover if we're going to cover what's going to be discussed at the hearing.
Yeah, it's the same stuff we've heard and known about Arrow for a long time. Granted, it's good that he's going ahead and letting members of Congress know what's been publicly available for years.
But he's saying it under oath, and he's saying it publicly on the congressional record for everybody to hear. So
yes.
For people who are not necessarily aware of these things, it's good information for them. And now we can move on to Shellenberger. I just
All
wanted
right,
to get that out of the way.
I think this is going to be the big one, folks. Let's get into this. So as you can see, leave it there. The text is a lot smaller. It's not bold. It's not 1.5 spaced. 14 pages. So let's get into this. And there's like 40 pages of citations of where the information came from. First, Chairman Mace, Chairman Grothman, ranking member, blah, blah, blah. Thank you for your inviting me for my testimony. One of Congress's most important responsibilities is the oversight of the executive branch in general and the military and the intelligence community in particular. The first article of the United States Constitution specifies this responsibility. This role ensures that the powerful government entities operate within the bounds of the law, uphold democratic principles, and remain accountable to the American people. Apparently, this has not been going on since the National Security Act passed in 1947, Mike.
There you go.
This responsibility, let me just go to this really quick for the audience so I can make the text a little bit bigger. I think they'll appreciate it because I know I will. Almost there. All right, here we go. This responsibility extends classified programs like special access programs. By law, the Department of Defense, also known as the DoD, must notify the Gang of Eight and or the relevant congressional committees about their existence, which they haven't. 10 U.S.C. Section 19 and 50 U.S.C. Section 3093 are applicable here. The Deputy Secretary of Defense must also notify Congress regarding the DoD SAPs, and the President must notify regarding covert action. For UAPs, this is not apparently happening because the White House has a loophole for non-covert action wave programs. But I have a feeling, Mike, Trump is going to waive it, and he is going to bring out the truth on this.
Well, he keeps talking publicly about dismantling the intelligence community and the CIA, who we know has been at the heart of this since 1947 or longer.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's so many other places, even the Department of Education and so many other places that are just corrupt within the halls of Washington, D.C. The National Security Act, there it is, of 1947 requires that covert operations and CAPs, also known as controlled access programs by intelligence agencies, including the military intelligence community, be reported to Congress. Specifically, the president must provide a written finding that justifies covert action and submit it to the House and Senate intelligence committees. What's crazy is, Mike, they haven't been getting this information and they've been passive on it. They haven't been active on it for the longest time. It's like, here, see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. It's okay. We don't want to know about it. But time is changing. There is, however, a growing body of evidence that the government is not being transparent about what it knows about unidentified anomalous phenomena, and that elements within the military and IC are in violation of their constitutional duty to notify Congress of their operations. Well, it's not just the IC and the intelligence community and the military. It's the executive branch who's truly at fault here, Mike, because they've been following the direction of the commander-in-chief. President-elect Donald Trump and former President Barack Obama have said that the government has information about UAPs that is not released. In 2020, during a podcast with his son, Donald Trump Jr. said, "I won't talk to you about what I know about it, but it's very interesting. Current and former IC officials have suggested knowledge of unreleased information." In 2021, former CIA Director John Brennan said, quote, "I think some of the phenomena we may be seeing continue to be unexplained and might be some type of phenomenon that results from something that we don't yet understand and could involve some type of activity that some say constitutes a different form of life." Said Avril Haines, the Biden administration's director of national intelligence, quote, "There's always the question of Is there something else that we simply do not understand that might come extraterrestrially? Senate Intelligence Committee Vice Chairman Marco Rubio, former Congressman Mike Gallagher, and the longtime congressional staffer Kirk McConnell have said that multiple individuals with firsthand knowledge of UAP programs have spoken to Congress and or one of the inspector generals. And in 2023, a high-ranking former intelligence officer named David Grush testified to Congress that individuals told him that the U.S. government had retrieved craft and biological material of non-human origin. In April of this year, the Pentagon released declassified documents showing that a proposed Department of Homeland Security program was intended to take possession of and reverse engineer retrieved UAPs, while the department's then top scientist advocated for the program and said, quote, there was very serious science involved with it. DHS leadership ultimately quashed the proposal despite support by former Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid and former Senator Joe Lieberman. According to the declassified minutes from the meeting, Reid and Lieberman advocated for the proposed UAP reverse engineering program with some sense of urgency. That reminds me, Mike, wasn't there a story that came out today from Gary Nolan, where he actually, in the recent interview over on Disclosure Team with Vinnie Adams, he actually released images of a person who was working for basically a reverse engineering of anti-gravitational technology, who had sustained brain injuries, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what he was talking about. You know, it's too bad that they didn't have Gary come and testify at this hearing. That would have been interesting.
Oh, yes, it would have. It would have. That's an absolute fact. But they've kept a lot of the scientists out of it. It's all just, well, reporters and military folk at this point. Let's move on. DOD denials and contradictions. The president has discretion over what to share to Congress when it comes to classified material relating to national security. It is thus essentially up to the president to decide if and what information to share. Quote, RO's files contain all available data related to each UAP case, said Goff. Regardless of modality or classification, I refer you to the Office of the Director of National Intelligence concerning intelligence community databases. In its report, RO said that it assessed as inaccurate the claim that the United States government is reverse engineering extraterrestrial technology and is hiding it from Congress. Like we're going to believe anything that came from Sean Kirkpatrick. Claims to the contrary are the result of circular reporting from a group of individuals who believe this to be the case, despite the lack of evidence. Oh, referring to Lou Elizondo and others, Mike. The former director of RO has since resigned his position and has repeatedly dismissed and ridiculed the topic, claiming that the talk of phenomena is due mainly to a small group of individuals in the group of rumor-based religion, again referring to Christopher Mellon, Lou Elizondo, Gary Nolan, and others. But critics say that RO's 63-page history of the U.S. government's investigation of the UAPs since the end of World War II was riddled with factual errors and poor referencing, including to Wikipedia. And the document was missing historical information that appeared in the 117-page UAP timeline document that a former or existing U.S. government intelligence officer created and which published last year. And it is attached as an appendix to his testimony. Christopher Mellon, a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense, wrote a lengthy rebuttal, including, quote, "This is the most error-ridden and unsatisfactory government report I can recall reading during or after decades of government service. Sean Kirkpatrick, you are going down in history, my friend. Notably, RO's poor analytic tradecraft extends to recent highly publicized UAP incidents reported by service members. Political leaders from both parties have vouched for the credibility of UAP witnesses and whistleblowers. I've interviewed solid people, said former President Donald Trump in September. Great pilots from the Air Force, etc. They've seen things they cannot explain. In June of this year, Trump again said that the government has information about UAPs that is not released. Quote, I have access, he said, and I speak to people about it. I've actually had meetings on it, and they will tell you that there's something going on. And in his interview with Joe Rogan in October, Trump again said that the DOD or IC told him a lot about UAPs that has not been revealed. Believable, Mike?
It's believable, Thomas.
Yeah, that does not mean that non-human beings occupy or operating UAPs, nor that the U.S. government and military contractors are hiding crashed spacecraft or bodies, as some former astronauts, former IC officials, and former military leaders claim. There are other explanations for UAPs, like swamp gas and balloons. Currently dominant alternative theories, including those put forward by ARO, are that UAPs are some kind of natural phenomenon we don't understand, like ball lightning, plasma, or I'll add the one in here, swamp gas, like I just said. They could also be part of some new or foreign government weapons program, such as drones, aircraft, balloons, CGI hoaxes, and of course, Mike, birds. Now,
Exactly.
I have seen a lot of videos on Twitter lately of people showing where there's lights being shot up into the sky above cities and above different locations, and they have little white dots that are moving along. If it's a bird, it's a bird, but a lot of the stuff we're talking about when they're moving 11, 13, 14,000 miles per hour, that's no fucking bird. Let's just be honest. Other UAP skeptics, like Mick West, say that some combination of government disinformation and social contagion, like satanic panic back in the 80s. Remember the Dungeons and Dragons days and everyone was afraid?
Very well, yeah.
No, I was playing D&D back then. I think you were too, Mike.
I was, yeah.
Yeah, the 80s or the Salem witch trials among UAP believers in the U.S. military. It is possible that the Pentagon and CIA are still playing disinformation games of hide the salami with the American people to cover up unacknowledged programs, or that intelligence and security agencies, as well as politicians, are creating a UAP hoax to frighten the public into voting for them. And it's possible that whistleblowers are fabricating parts or all of their testimony. If they fabricate their testimony, Mike, they're going to frickin' prison for 5 years, right?
It's a federal violation to perjure yourself before Congress, federal offense. Michael Cohen was convicted of that and went to federal prison for it. No, you can't lie to Congress under oath.
Oh, that turkey, absolutely. Let's move on. The U.S. Air Force allegedly used disinformation against a UFO buff in the past to cover up a weapons program. Now, that's not the one with Rick, but something similar could be happening today. However, Senator Rubio noted last year, quote, most of the UAP whistleblowers have held very high clearances and high positions within our government. So you do ask yourself, what incentive do many people with that kind of qualification, these are serious people, have come forward and make something up? Rubio also said that individuals with, quote, high clearances and high positions within our government with firsthand knowledge of UAPs were fearful of harm coming to them. Grush and other UAP whistleblowers say the government retaliated against them and tried to stop them from going public. Last year, Senator Gillibrand said, quote, there's a lot of fear, and so I don't know if we'll ever get to the bottom of it. I don't know if we'll ever get the information about special access programs that are need to know. Only that Congress has not been read in. I'm trying to get to the bottom of it. It's amazing what happens when you have a Democrat talking about a Democrat president who's not moving along, Mike.
Yeah, it's the cone of silence, Thomas.
Oh, she's just building up walls to say, oh, we can't get past that. Well, the truth of the matter is, the next 4 years we got a chance to. Grush said he resigned under duress and went public to protect himself. The training and experience of many UAP witnesses and whistleblowers, including in the USIC and military, undermined facile dismissals of these individuals as crank and grifters. In 2021, John Ratcliffe, the then director of national intelligence under former President Trump, said that UAP demonstrated, quote, technologies that we don't have and, frankly, that we are not capable of defending against. Ratcliffe said U.S. intelligence analysts had, quote, high confidence, end quote, that foreign adversaries were not behind the famous Tic Tac UAP that 4 Navy pilots encountered over the water. Now, this is the same Tic Tac incident that was just that Sean Kirkpatrick tried to dismiss and call out as a misidentification, right, Mike?
Yeah, he said that there was a government black ops weapons development program that was able to have balloons that would be inflated underwater and then be able to rise up out of the water. And he believed that the Tic Tac incident was probably a clandestine program from the military.
Part of that, yeah, exactly. And that it was
a balloon.
It was a balloon, and we were just misidentifying stuff. And he also brought up in the past and said, well, if these were truly craft coming down from 80,000 feet down to 50 feet in less than a second, that these things should be bursting into fireballs. And if it wasn't, it was a mirage. Well, it actually comes from Avi Loeb and Sean Kirkpatrick.
Yes, that was a paper they jointly wrote together.
Yes, it was. So back to Ratcliffe, there are a lot more sightings that have been made public. Last October, Office of the Director of National Intelligence and the DoD published their 2023 annual report on UAPs. By the way, that was supposed to be out about
October.
12 days ago, October 31st. Where's the report? Where's the updated historical report? You're late again, Aro. You can't blame it on saying, oh, look, we got a new director. There's a whole staff of people there besides the director, right, Mike?
That's true. He has an entire staff of people in that agency. Maybe we'll hear something about it in 2025, Thomas.
Maybe.
You never know.
It's said that many reports from military witnesses do present potential safety of flight concerns, and there are some cases where reported UAP have potentially exhibited one or more concerning performance characteristics, such as high-speed travel, unusual maneuverability. Remember, I've got a video that we showed here in Disclosure tonight many times that shows a jet fighter from the Red Arrows from the United Kingdom getting swooped on by a UAP going about between 11 and 14,000 miles per hour as it's moving along at 450 miles per hour, with the UAP swooping down and coming within 70 feet of the front of that plane. The report also noted that UAP incidents have been deconflicted with potential secret U.S. programs, and that none of the incidents, quote, have been possibly attributed to foreign activities. Finally, many videos and photographs cannot be easily dismissed, and people have reported similar UAPs before drones, aircraft, and CGI existed or was widespread. And now, existing and former U.S. government officials have told members of Congress that ARO and the Pentagon have broken the law by not revealing a significant body of information about UAPs, including military intelligence databases that have evidence of their existence as physical craft. Now, here's the part we're getting into, Mike, which is the money pit, Immaculate Constellation.
Sir.
Go ahead, sir.
Good.
Yeah, one of these individuals is a current or former government official acting as a UAP whistleblower. The person has written a report that says the executive branch has been managing UAP NHI issues without congressional knowledge, oversight, or authorization for some time, possibly quite possibly decades. And just to point this out, we were the first UAP broadcast on YouTube to be pointing out this is a specific executive branch cover-up where everyone else was pointing at the DOD. I've been saying DOE, more importantly, executive branch, and it looks like that is where it's at. Furthermore, these individuals have revealed the name of an actively and highly secretive DOD unacknowledged special access program for USAP. The source of the document told public that the USAP is a strategic intelligence program that is part of the U.S. military's family of long-standing, highly sensitive programs dealing with various aspects of the UAP problem. The new UAP whistleblower claims that the U.S. military and IC database includes videos and images taken using infrared, forward infrared, full motion video, and still photography in high resolution. The government whistleblower made their claims in a report provided to the authorized committees of Congress and their staff, which means that that report, in 27 pages long, Mike, Congress now has, correct?
They do. It was submitted by Shellenberger's whistleblower, and Shellenberger and George Knapp have access to a copy of that report as well.
So the whistleblower alleges that the DOD created this USAP called Immaculate Constellation in 2017 after the New York Times published an article describing an informal Pentagon UAP program called Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, or ATIP. The report shared with Congress says, quote, Immaculate Constellation serves as a central or parent USAP that consolidates observations of UAPs by both tasked and untasked collection platforms. DOD spokesperson Susan Goff said, quote, the DOD has no record, present or historical, of any type of SAP called Immaculate Constellation. Even if it was, Mike, I don't think she'd be able to say that, would she?
No, she would not legally, Thomas.
Because it's an unacknowledged SAP, which means they can't acknowledge it ever.
Right. That's something that it will never come out publicly.
Absolutely. After publication, a source told me that the SAP is controlled by the White House and executed by and administrated by the DOD to avoid compliance with Title 10 of the United States Code. Quote, it is essentially a DOD program, the person said. Quote, as the White House directed the Secretary of Defense to run it, but that's the loophole. The whistleblower's report includes 7 categories of evidence. It describes in detail various UAP sightings collected by technical assets and U.S. military personnel. Quote, the multitude of wavelengths collected by these sensors, end quote. The report says, quote, have captured UAP characteristics that are difficult or impossible to observe with the human eye alone. That's because, Mike, when you have something moving that fast, guess what? You can't even see it. It is invisible to the human eye, and I'll tell you what, these craft exactly know what our eyes are capable of and what to do to keep us from seeing it. The report says have captured UAP characteristics that are difficult and impossible to observe with the human eye alone. Subtle atmospheric effects associated with UAP are also visible through the sensor employed by the U.S. military and intelligence agencies. The verifiable chain of custody for UAP IMINT for what means quality imagery intelligence collected by U.S. military assets, the person wrote, ensures a high level of confidence in the accuracy and integrity of the data gathered, meaning they have data, Mike, that is beyond a shadow of a doubt that says these just aren't unidentified craft. These are of non-human origin.
Correct.
The report concludes that the existence of Immaculate Constellation demonstrates the extent capability to detect, quarantine, and transfer UAP and reproduction vehicle collection incidents before they observed and circulated within a military intelligence enterprise, thus serving as a means for enforcing internal information security. A formal IC official confirmed to the public the existence of Immaculate Constellation. Quote, that program is run out of the Secretary of Defense, which is the Office of the Secretary of Defense, the person said. Quote, they don't want to acknowledge it's real. ARO is also housed within the Office of the Undersecretary for Defense for Intelligence and Security, also known as OUSD and INS. Those are the old bosses of Lou Elizondo. Remember, even though we have a new lead of ARO, he's still reporting to the same panel that controlled him that Sean Kirkpatrick had. He's still reporting to the same person of the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security, who handles overseeing for operations or administration. So if you look at that, if you have a new person coming in and all of this stuff remains the same, Mike, it's no different than shuffling around the deck chairs on the Titanic.
Yep, that's exactly right, Thomas.
Would you look at that, Mike? We have 312 people watching the show with only 81 likes. Do us a favor, folks. If you're having a good time, give us a thumbs up, and if you're not, give us a thumbs down. We'll take one or the other. Every thumbs up or thumbs down that we give YouTube encourages YouTube to go ahead and share this broadcast with more people. And by the way, if you haven't subscribed yet, we'd love to have you as a regular here on Disclosure tonight. Let's move on.
Well, we want to first stop to thank FaZe Will for the 1999 Super Chat.
Oh, thank you very much, Mike. I got that. Let me bring that one up here. Oh, where is that at? Actually, we got two of them. One for my Wildcat Mahone for $5. Thank you very much. Expose the cabal. And another one coming in from FaZe Will. I pray for transparency and hope our government don't play whack-a-mole. Happy Veterans Day, everyone. Thank you very much, FaZe Will. Appreciate your love and support of everything Disclosure tonight. Let's get back to this. As such, the Office of Congress, created to investigate unreported UAP programs, is troublingly close to the organization running the alleged programs, meaning we've got the people who are trying to oversee and bring out the truth. They're never going to do it, Mike, because they're part of the cover-up.
No, you're right, Thomas. That's what we've been up against for over 80 years now. That's the problem.
Oh, and it's going to continue. It's going to continue. Let's move on. We're on page 7 of 14. A source warned that simply printing the name Immaculate Constellation could trigger government surveillance of me under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, also known as FISA, of whoever publishes it. How the hell did I lose that? Let me bring this up here again. Let me bring this back. All right. They won't comment on it, but talking about it will put us, everybody who mentions it, including ourselves, in the danger zone. I was told they enforce the secrecy with a lot of vigor. The whistleblower's report said that, quote, a significant volume of intelligence reports documenting first-hand encounters with unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAPs, or unidentified flying objects, also known as UFOs, by DoD personnel exists within the Defense Human Intelligence databases accessible to the intelligence community. Immaculate Constellation includes, quote, high-quality imagery, also known as images intelligence, and measurement and signals intelligence of UAPs. The whistleblower's report adds, the source of this intelligences are a blend of directed and incidental collection capabilities positioned in low Earth orbit, the upper atmosphere, and as well as military and civilian altitudes and maritime environments. The report to Congress describes in detail various UAPs. From 91 to 2022, the most common UAP shape reported by the U.S. government data set was spheres, orbs, discs or saucers, ovals and tic-tacs, triangles, boomerangs, arrowheads, and irregular organic. The report describes various incidents found in the human intelligence databases. One involved orbs surrounding and forcing an F-22 out of its patrol area. Mike, it sounds like, yeah, they're forcing the F-22 out of its patrol area, but I think this is their patrol area, and they don't want the F-22 there. Good for them. You know what? We've never had domain over our skies since this country was formed, so it should be no surprise to the U.S. government that they're getting a little testy about us. Quote, the F-22 broke trajectory and attempted to evade, but was intercepted and boxed in by approximately 3 to 6 UAPs, according to the report. One UAP maneuvered in approximately greater than 12 meters to the area directly starboard of the cockpit. Hey, Google, how long is 12 meters in feet?
12 meters,
39 feet.
4.44
There we go.
inches.
So the other one we saw where they came within 70 feet of the cockpit. There you go. There the UAP established a rigid spatial relationship with the F-22, maintaining its exact position orientation parallel with the F-22's cockpit design, despite multiple invasive rolls and maneuvers. Surrounded by the presumed hostile UAPs, the F-22 was forced out of the mission area under the escort of the UAP formation. Does it sound hostile, Mike, or does it sound like it's under patrol and it's getting our plane out of where it doesn't want it? If it was hostile, it would have attacked the plane.
But it did force the plane out of its patrol area, which tells me it's a threat to air safety.
Well, in a mostly peaceful manner.
But that could have gone either way, and I'm sure there are plenty of accounts that the government...
if the UAP wanted it to go that way, in a fraction of a second, they could have. They politely escorted the person out of the nightclub who they didn't want to have there. Let's just be honest. Luckily, our F-22 pilot didn't push back.
Yeah, from what I understand, he was scared shitless, so I don't think he was looking to do anything hostile at that time.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Anytime you get surrounded by bodyguards or bouncers and you're escorted and you're escorted to the door, you kind of give in usually. In another incident, the crew of a Navy aircraft carrier watched a small orange-red sphere rapidly descend from high altitude to 100 to 200 yards directly above the flight deck of the CVN aircraft carrier. The UAPs appeared to emit a soft orange red light. Bizarrely, did not illuminate the ocean or the flight deck of the aircraft carrier, despite the visual appearance of intense luminosity. The surface of the UAP was observed to be dynamic, rolling like the surface of the sun. Well, this sounds interesting, I tell you. Since my reporting last month, another source told me that he saw a roughly 13-minute-long, high-definition, full-color video of a white orb UAP coming out of the ocean approximately 20 miles off the coast of Kuwait. It was filmed from a helicopter. Then, halfway through the video, the person said the orb was joined by another orb that briefly come into the frame from the far left before rapidly moving out again of the frame. The person discovered the video on SIPRNet, the secure internet protocol router network, the secure network that the DoD uses to transmit classified information. Next section from Shellenberger, who really seems to be the star witness in this, Mike. Absolutely. He's saying more than anybody.
Well, that incident that you just talked about has not been released or spoken about publicly up until now.
There we go. We got it first.
We did.
Let's move in. Government secrecy and disinformation. The Pentagon has changed names of its UAP investigations from 2009 to 2017. Pentagon had a program called OSAP to investigate UAP reports. OSAP reports ended in 2010 but ran through 2012. According to the DoD, from 2020 to 2022, the Pentagon calls its study of UAPs the UAP Task Force. Starting in 2022, by the order of Congress, the Pentagon has had a public-facing program, RO, to study the reports of UAPs and release information to the public. One possibility is that RO's work is a continuation of the U.S. government's UAP public relations, and it's not UAP investigations. Since 1953, when the CIA's Robertson panel recommended a strategy of using experts to dismiss and ridicule UAP witnesses and government whistleblowers. RO itself is described as part of the mission overview brief. Several key functions, including operations for synchronizing and sequencing, theater, IC, and other capabilities for optimal cross-functional UAP detection, tracking, mitigation, and recovery, as well as science and technology, revealing and exploiting elusive and enigmatic signatures through advanced technologies and focused sector partnerships. But here's the thing. They say there's none of it is UAP. So according to them, none of this stuff is actually ever going to happen, Mike.
Unless we have both houses of the Congress and the executive branch pushing for the truth, Thomas.
I think it's going to come down to is if we have the executive branch pushing for the truth. I'll just put that out there. I don't have faith in Congress. It's Congress's ability to move this forward. Maybe they can pressure the executive branch, but I think it's going to come from people who are within the cabinet of the President of the United States, and of which we have a lot of people in there who want to bring forward the truth, including the new president. Okay, so it was declassified in 1971 Australian government memo about UAP claims that the CIA urged the debunking and UFO sightings as cover for its efforts to develop craft powered by anti-gravity. The CIA's Office of Scientific Intelligence, OSI, wrote an Australian military officer, quote, acting through the Robertson panel meeting in mid-January 1953, persuaded the U.S. Air Force to use Project Blue Book as a means of publicly debunking UFOs, and at later stage to allocate funds for the Avro Advanced Saucer aircraft and the launching of a crash program into anti-gravity power. The memo describes the CIA's strategy to discredit alleged UAP witnesses and whistleblowers. By erecting a facade of ridicule, the U.S. hoped to ally public alarm, reduce the possibility of the Soviet taking advantage of UFO mass sightings for either psychological or actual warfare purposes, and act as cover for the real U.S. program for developing vehicles that emulate UFO performances. Other documents support this picture of the U.S. government's disinformation. Brigadier General Carol H. Bolender signed a 1969 memo stating that the U.S. Air Force had withheld UAP sightings from the Air Force's UAP research program known as Project Blue Book, and that it had continued to track UFOs afterward. The New York Times reported that former Pentagon official and UAP whistleblower Louis Elizondo, quote, said he was not approved to discuss his involvement in any other secret projects beyond the RO program he once led. A leading UAP researcher who utilizes the Freedom of Information Act to find out what the government knows, John Greenwald from the Black Vault sex toy store, told public last year that the U.S. government had increasingly been denying his request for UAP information. He has been doing FOIA requests for 27 years and created an archive of over 3 million pages. Greenwald, like me, does not claim to know the nature of the phenomenon and does not speculate about it. The only thing he seems to speculate is about trashing Lou's pedigree. However, he is concerned by increasing government secrecy. He notes that the government has been hiding information for decades. Quote, the government has, for decades, denied any interest in UFOs, he told the public last year. But the documents Greenwald has assembled show that, behind the scenes, it was a completely different story. Contrary to the hopes of many advocates of transparency, the government has been restricting more information since the leak of these 3 UAP videos in 2017. The DoD organization ARO has been labeling many documents with a B7 exception, which Greenwald says does not make any sense. Quote, they are stating that anything ARO is doing is involved in a law enforcement investigation, end quote. He explains, which allows ARO not to release it. What's more, the government is not properly explaining why it is engaged in so much secrecy. Quote, it seems like they don't want us to know anything when it comes to UAP, he said. There's just really no good answer for it. And now, in a forthcoming documentary by James Fox, known as The Program, about the U.S. government program's alleged UAP retrieval program, Kirk McConnell, a 37-year congressional staffer for the U.S. Senate and House of Select Committees on Intelligence, describes a testimony that members of Congress and staffers have heard from individuals claiming firsthand knowledge of legacy, potentially illegal UAP programs. Now, the government appears to know significantly more about UAPs than it is revealing. But even those who believe the U.S. government has revealed all that it knows should have no objection to Congress' demands for greater transparency. Individuals have told the public that many within the DoD, IC, and contracting community oppose further transparency. Many people are saying it's what? For national security reasons, which I personally call bullshit too. Majority of it. Susan Goff, or Sue Goff at this point, DoD spokesperson, told me that, quote, to date, the department has found no evidence of the existence of any classified UFO program, including any SAP or controlled access program to UAP, that has not been properly reported to Congress. I refer you to the findings of RO's Historical Report, Volume 1, available on ro.mil. Should the DoD find anything that revises these findings, we will appropriately share the information promptly with Congress, subject to the classifications and access limitations, so as to protect sensitive sources and methods, which is usually their bullshit response. We will also make as much information available to the public as possible. Greenwald noted that the DoD has denied the existence of UAP and ATIP-related records on multiple occasions, only later to acknowledge them after an appeal was filed. According to Greenwald, the Naval Air Systems Command, or NAVAIR, in March of 22 stated, quote, they found no additional UAP videos. It seems strange that they had 3, and only those 3. But other requests had already been filed by the Black Vault to seek out more UAP videos that might be hiding. Then in September 2022, the Navy admitted that UAP-related videos and photographs existed, but denied the request in full for the release, saying that the requested videos contain sensitive information pertaining to UAP and are classified and are exempt from disclosure. Boo. The DoD, quote, will deny things on a Monday and then admit them on a Friday, noted Greenwald. He adds that the government can and does release videos and photos that protect secret methods of capturing it. Quote, they fall back on the sensitive platform excuse a lot, Greenwald said. Quote, the on-screen information can be blurred and scrubbed. The metadata can be removed. Just on this note, Mike, you know, we've seen many times when we've had our planes interacting with Chinese fighters over Taiwan. We've had it when we've run into Russian bombers up in Alaska. We've even had it over the Black Sea where our drones were hit by fuel drops coming from Russian fighter jets.
Jet fighters, yeah.
Videos are released the same day those events happen, and they scrub out all the information and get it out there. Yet we haven't had one UAP video, let alone any of the videos of what was shot down over Dead Horse, Alaska, what was brought down over the Yukon, what was seen over Maelstrom Air Force Base, where we have a bunch of nuclear weapons, and was eventually shot down over Lake Huron. Nothing was released by our government as they continue to stalwart and keep the truth from coming out.
Correct. And this is what is an ongoing thing, which is the point that Shellenberger is making in his testimony. It's ongoing.
Absolutely. CIA and Army documents show that they have collected materials from UAPs that they cannot explain, Greenwald notes. But the CIA's recommendations on what to do with the material were redacted. Government disinformation continues to this day, notes Greenwald. The CIA, he said, tweeted out information claiming that UAP sightings in the 50s were people seeing the flights of the U.S. government's U-2 spy plane, even though the U-2 didn't get off the ground until the mid-1950s. Wasn't there a time frame when they saw over 200 saucers in around Los Alamos National Labs in the early 50s?
Late 50s, yeah, that's true.
On top of that, there was not really never any matchup between the more interesting cases and the U-2 flights. The historical examples are also important because the airborne technology 70 years ago was far more primitive than it is today. We're getting to it. We're on finishing off page 12 of 14. Let's get into this. Since 2021, members of Congress have expressed growing frustration over the military and IC's refusal to reveal concrete information to them. The Intelligence Authorization Act for fiscal year 2025 would cut off funding for, quote, any activity involving UFOs protected under any form of special access or restricted access limitations not reported to Congress as required by law. In other words, notes analyst Mark von Rennenkampf, despite RO's sweeping denials of secret unreported UFO activities, the Senate Intelligence Committee believes that such programs do indeed exist. Congressional leaders are seeking to expand upon the UAP transparency legislation that was passed last year. The UAP Disclosure Act, which failed twice now, would force the U.S. military, IC, and any private entity to turn over recovered technologies of unknown origin and associated quote-unquote biological materials and provide all UAP records to an independent review board for potential public disclosure. The legislation would also expand protections for whistleblowers and require the government accountability offices to review RO's work. This formal review by Congress's in-house investigative agency is a stark demonstration of the Intelligence Committee's lack of confidence in RO, said von Rennenkampf. Now, just before we get into this further, UAPDA failed the first time horribly. It failed the second time, even worse. Let's just consider that legislation dead. It's too big of a pill for Congress to follow. They're going to have to break this up into smaller chunks to get it in. And I encourage them to get someone who actually is known for writing legislation of that matter and not bring in someone who's ex from the military. Just saying. It appeared that the UAP transparency legislation had died last month, but the Disclosure Act co-sponsor, Senator Mike Rounds, told journalist Matt Laszlo, let me put it this way, it's not out yet, but it still is. And the NDA's negotiations continue, but there's nothing happening. We have a lame duck Congress now. Even so, few expected legislation to succeed in its current form without a change in public pressure or political priority. I just say they're going to have to really scrap that document, break it up, rewrite it to be able to get this thing. Otherwise, we're just going to keep on going down that drain time and time again. So let's get on to it. Whatever happens with the legislation, the historical evidence, whistleblowers, and RO critics have questioned the office's legitimacy. It's a cover-up, as Tim Burchett would say. While the UAPs remain mysterious, it's clear that the U.S. government is not being straight with the American people. Now, this is all the more alarming following a series of incursions by unknown objects around sensitive military assets, including nuclear missile silos, in recent years. Mike, have you heard anything about nuclear missile silos getting taken by UAP in recent years?
Not in recent years. No, Thomas. Not publicly.
Unless they're talking about those drones that were happening several years ago out in Colorado, North Dakota, South Dakota. Oh, that's right. We do have nuclear missile silos there, don't we?
We absolutely do.
There you go. It could be that. We'll find out. Beyond exhibiting seemingly advanced technology, the objects appear to put on a display of impunity by flying with bright lights, by flashing bright lights and flying in formation. President Donald Trump ran on and was elected with a mandate to make government more transparent and release long-held secrets on everything from COVID origins, the Hunter Biden laptop, JFK files, and UAPs. I encourage Congress to help the president-elect make that commitment reality by enacting stronger protections to at-risk whistleblowers, putting in place pro-transparency leaders of the DoD and IC organizations, and passing the UAP Disclosure Act. More like Mike, they need to go ahead, if they want protections for whistleblowers, put it into standalone legislation and pass it today. There's nothing that's stopping them from passing that. Oh, yeah, the current president, right?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
we've talked about this on the show for a very long time now, that had they put this as a standalone bill, it would have a better shot at not getting gutted like it has with the UAPDA once but twice already. But they haven't done that. They failed to do that yet. We'll see.
Time and time again. Now to finish this off, great testimony from Shellenberger. These cuts into the core of our democracy, or this issue cuts into the core of our democracy. UAP transparency is bipartisan and critical to our national security. The incoming Congress and administration should work together to address it as a matter of acute urgency. We deserve the truth. Wow, that is 14 pages of a lot of things to say, Mike. Let me give you the helm for a second. I need to step away for a second, but what are your thoughts on this?
I think it's incredible. And you did a great job, by the way. You got through that. Like
Yeah,
a
I had a
champ.
blast through a couple parts where I screwed up on the words and ad-libbed a little bit here and there, but you got to have fun with it. Go ahead.
It's fine. But no, you did a great job. That's one hell of a degree of information that Shellenberger included in his upcoming testimony. Now, this is something that's going to be covered live under oath at the November 13th live congressional hearing on UAP. Him making these points directly to Congress and it being on the congressional record as well is something that can't be ignored or denied. And I think that's one of the key reasons why they're having these whistleblowers and witnesses like Shellenberger testify to this degree and level of information. It's something that hopefully, if the mainstream media is paying attention to this hearing and covers key testimony like this, that would get the attention of the public about what's been being hidden, which I think is at the heart of this. It isn't so much about what's gone on. It's about what is it that they're still continuing to keep away from Congress and the American public. It's disheartening that this has been going on for so long. And with all of the legislative acts that have occurred over the past couple of years, we haven't really made much progress, have we, Thomas?
No, we haven't. And
That's the
since
key
we've been having the show going for over 3 years now. Yeah, not a lot has happened to move things forward. There's been a lot of talk, but there hasn't been a lot of action.
No, absolutely not. And that's why people are frustrated. That's why people, and to a large degree, a lot of the mainstream public that I speak to every day, as do you, they're at the point where they're losing interest because there's nothing for them to take seriously as of yet. But hopefully that's going to change with the new administration that's coming in.
Yeah.
We need transparency. We need actual information to sink our teeth into. And we haven't gotten it up until this point. This entire administration that currently in office, how would you sum it up, Thomas? Their position on disclosure is talk to Barack?
Talk to Barack, I would just say, as Tim Burchett always says, it's a cover-up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we got another super chat from Tim Senor, Anonymous Rex.
Oh, wow, Timmy. Thank you very much. Look at that. I got another super chat for $4.99 coming in from Anonymous Rex, also known as Tim Senor. Used to be on this show and used to be also a part of Spaced Out Radio. How about that? Thank you, Thomas. No, thank you. I appreciate that, my friend. Oh, it looks like we have someone with their hands up in the back. Nick, go ahead.
Yes. Did you ever play that Ross Coulthard video? That Ross video?
Have I?
Yeah, you haven't. I can't play it.
No, we haven't. We haven't gotten there yet, my friend.
Okay.
We've got more testimony to go ahead and cover. This next one coming from Mike Gold, who used to be a part of NASA, Mike.
He did. He was on the UAP board, from what I remember, correct?
Yes, he was. He was. Corporal Abe 3, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say the lack of transparency equals a threat. And, like, this is the entire problem. That's everything you're saying is correct. And because we're not getting information.
It's a threat of, let's call it Pearl Harbor and 9/11 combined.
I agree with you 1,000%. I'm a veteran. I shit my pants in 2004. And the lack of response from 2004 till today is mind-blowing.
Remember, you have Sean Kirkpatrick, who's even saying all the records from 2004 from the Nimitz incident don't exist because we weren't saving data from back then. Bullshit.
I got in trouble on an aircraft carrier, and I got ordered not to speak about the 2004 incident. So whatever Sean Kirkpatrick is saying is going against 5,000 people on an aircraft carrier that I was on the East Coast, and we were experiencing the same shit that they were experiencing on the West Coast. The lack of transparency, the lack of understanding of the global and the American public of this situation is a fucking threat.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely, my friend. On that note, let's get into our last piece of testimony we haven't gotten to today, Mike. My voice is holding up. I've got 4 pages on this one. I think we should be able to get before the timer strikes and I turn into a pumpkin.
Oh, yeah. Time flew. It went by pretty quickly, actually.
Yeah, it is. Let's get into this one. This one's coming to us from Mike Gold. Let's see. Now, my name is Mike Gold. I'm currently a Chief Growth Officer at Redwire Space. Look them up. Redwire Space. And I also served at NASA as Associate Administrator for Space Policy and Partnerships, Acting Associate Administrator for the Office of International Interagency Relations, and Senior Advisor to the Administrator for International and Legal Affairs. However, for the purpose of this testimony, I want to be clear that I'm speaking exclusively on my own behalf, not for Redwire, NASA, or any other organization. I want to begin by complimenting everyone and... Okay, let's move on. This is just thanks to everybody on this one. Despite the stigma, the committee has chosen to proceed with hearings, demonstrated a devotion to scientific openness, regardless of the ridicule, and even spite at the discussions that UAP can engender. Again, thank you for your courage and commitment to the following facts, no matter where they may lead. First, I would like to remiss if I also don't thank the sponsors of NASA UAP Independent Study Team. Specifically, I'm grateful to your former congressional colleagues, NASA Administrator Bill Nelson, for his courage and direction to tackle the changing topic when he also looks like he represents Amway. Additionally, I would like to express my appreciation to the former NASA Associate Administrator for the Space Science Mission Directorate. Okay, a bunch of thanks. Let's just move on. The topic of UAP is often discussed in the context of national security and defense. This is certainly justifiable due to the nature of the phenomena. However, it's important to ensure that America's and the world's civil and commercial sectors are not left out of this important dialogue. Agencies such as NASA have much to offer when it comes to understanding UAP, and this was a major finding of our IST report. However, before NASA, the Federal Aviation Administration, or the commercial space sector can effectively assist in resolving the UAP issue, we must first, as a nation, overcome the stigma that continues to impede scientific dialogue and open discussions. And let's just say, NASA needs to stop cutting the feed of what's going on in the ISS, bring out the truth, and stop being a part of this cover-up. Again, we all know NASA stands for never a straight answer. Combating the stigma. NASA is an agency that operates on data. Data is the lifeblood of NASA and science in general. Without data, nothing can be achieved. This is why the stigmatization of the UAP phenomena is so harmful. The stigma prevents scientific inquiry, the best tool that we have to understand anomalies, from being fully applied. For example, the NASA IST was fortunate to hear testimony of Lieutenant Commander Alex Dietrich, a decorated fighter pilot, Bronze Star and Air Combat Medal, who encountered UAP while conducting training exercises with the USS Nimitz Carrier Strike Group off the coast of California. Commander Dietrich was mocked by her colleagues, and the issue was ignored by her superiors, and the incident went years without any investigation. No, it was, but not completely. I think that's a false statement, if you ask me. If not for the work of the Advanced Aerospace Weapons Systems Applications Program, also known as OSAP, Commander Dietrich's experience may have been lost to history. This is a prime example of how the stigmatization of UAP prevent the gathering of invaluable data that represents our best and only chance to understand the phenomena. For NASA, or any scientific organization to properly engage in the UAP topic, this stigma must be eliminated. Now, Mike, one thing I want to put out there, the only reason we learned anything about the Tic Tac is because we have researchers out there like Dave Beatty, who found people from the Nimitz incident and brought them forward, put together recreations of the incident, and raised public awareness to it. If it weren't for the hard work of Dave, Mike, I don't think we ever would have heard about the Nimitz incident in the public. Just saying.
Oh, you're absolutely right. Plus, we've also had Kevin Day recently on the show talking about the Nimitz incident.
Yeah.
So, yeah. No, you're absolutely right.
And it was actually Dave's work that came forward to get people like Kevin and others to come forward.
Exactly. No, you're absolutely right about that.
Just the fact. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say you're absolutely right that a lot of this information, without key people that are bringing it out to the public would never know about it. And in turn, neither would Congress if it wasn't brought directly to their attention.
Yeah.
No, so you're right. Good points. I agree.
Just the fact that this hearing is taking place is helping to combat the stigmatization of UAP. Again, kudos to the committee for tackling this topic, and the more hearings like this that can take place on Capitol Hill, the more free a wide variety of experts from government, academia, and the private sector will be able to openly research and contribute to the understanding of UAP. How can NASA help? Let's just say, bring out the truth. Stop the cover-up. He's going to say, combat the stigmatization of UAP. There are a few, if any, agencies that enjoy the popularity of NASA. You can't walk down the street in Washington without seeing the NASA logo on shirts and hats. NASA enjoys a global brand that is synonymous with hope, optimism, and credibility. Therefore, I believe that NASA is ideally suited to help combat the stigmatization of UAP that they help create. The NASA UAP First was an important and valuable first step. However, there is much more that can be done. Specifically, NASA could sponsor a symposium on UAP, or even just convene and or participate in panels discussing the topic at existing domestic and international conferences. Participation by NASA officials in such discussions would carry great weight and send a message of the academic community that the UAP topic is no longer taboo. Such conference and panel participation would be done with little cost to the agency, but the impact on the quality and research done on UAP would be dramatic. B, review archival data. Oh, you mean the cover-up data? NASA has a vast archive of data, much of which could be relevant to unraveling The mystery of UAP, again, with relatively little cost or effort, NASA could create an artificial intelligence or machine learning algorithm that would review all agency archives to search for anomalous phenomena in the air, space, and sea. The result of such could then be shared with ARO, other relevant defense and intelligence agencies, and the public at large. Additionally, NASA is digitizing increased amounts of archival imagery, creating a singular opportunity to conduct UAP research, utilizing the data spanning over a half a century. You know, Mike, we have to look back at NASA here again. They know they have had plenty of sightings going on the data feeds. Let's just have them bring out the information they've been covering up all of this time.
Oh, they should. But do you really think that you bet your boots Bill Nelson is going to do something like that?
Oh,
I don't see it.
He'll just perpetuate the cover-up. Let's be honest.
Absolutely. No, exactly. A tried and true bureaucrat towing the line.
Oh, yeah. Let's move on. Reach out to international partners. Again, NASA's potentially America's most popular brand, and it has global reach. It's not just Americans who are wearing the NASA logo. You'll see the agency's meatball emblem in the city, almost any city in the world. This sounds like a repeat of what he just said. Moreover, NASA cooperates with hundreds of countries. The Artemis Accords, developed and driven by NASA and the Department of State, now have 47 signatories, with numerous additional countries likely to join in the months and years ahead. NASA's official Office of International and Interagency Relations, with relatively little effort, should take the time to regularly reach out to the agency's global partners, requesting any information that they may have regarding UAP. Subsequently, such information could then be shared by ARO with ARO and other agencies and the public. Mike, I have to ask the question, why aren't they doing it now?
No, you're right. That's a very good point. They should have done it already. But obviously, they're still dragging their feet and not moving forward on all of this information.
Well,
that should have
isn't
been out
NASA
already.
headed up by the executive branch?
Oh, absolutely it is. Of course.
And it's executive branch dictated cover-up. Let's
Right.
move on. Solicit, archive, review, and release civil and commercial UAP data. Again, data is key to understanding the UAP phenomena. Beyond stigmatization, a challenge that I saw during my work as part of the NASA UAP First is a dearth process and knowledge by civilian pilots on how to report UAP. If a civilian pilot sees a UAP, even if they were able to overcome the potential for ridicule and negative consequences to their career and decide to share their experience, I do not believe that most, if any, pilots would know who to report encounters to. Well, it's pretty honest. It's been said many times that if pilots see UAP, they're supposed to report it to the local police, right, Mike?
Oh, yeah. Any type of a disturbance needs to be reported immediately to any local law enforcement. That's standard operating procedure, Thomas.
But apparently, he doesn't even know, from what he was able to gather, FAA instructions on the matter are difficult to find, provide obsolete advice, referencing organizations that no longer exist and are not generally known or understood by the civilian pilot community. So even he can't figure it out. Well, that's sad. He's an expert witness. To address to address this issue of this nothing burger witness, NASA could work with the FAA to create a clear, consistent, and uniform reporting process for civilian pilots. Such reports would be transmitted to NASA, and the agency would collate this data and provide information to ARO. Why does NASA have to collate? Couldn't the FAA do that? I think so. Other relevant government entities, and most importantly, to the public at large. I don't think NASA needs to be a part of this, but if they want to, it's just going to slow the process down and make it more bureaucratic, Mike, and full of red tape.
Oh, it'll become a bureaucratic nightmare and a jungle if they get involved. You're right, Thomas.
Yeah. Subsequently, NASA would archive these reports for potential future use. The same could be done for data collected by commercial or private sector space companies. Commercial and private sector companies conducting ocean service or underwater activities, and all civilians who collect credible and useful data. Man, this guy sounds like he is just right up the rear of NASA, even though he doesn't work there. I mean, this is just NASA. Are we sure he's still not on the payroll for NASA?
I don't think so. I believe he's separated. He's working private contractor now.
Yeah. The last thing we need is yet another government agency to step in, especially one that's been hiding and covering their eyes on the truth of the UAP for so long. Let's move on. I believe NASA would be effective in collecting and disseminating the data on UAP due to its successful track record of collecting information on aviation safety issues. Specifically, the NASA UAP first recommended that the agency's aviation safety reporting system should be leveraged to collect UAP information as described in an expert from the UAP first report. Let's skip over that. It's also worth noting that other space agencies collect data on UAP, and it was interesting that the NASA UAP first to receive briefing on CNES, the French space agency's modest yet non-trivial efforts. Well, they may have had a briefing on it, but they've had many reports going on in a long basis. Let's move on. NASA faces some very difficult budgetary challenges, and I would urge the members of the Committee of Congress as a whole to support increasing funding to allow NASA to successfully execute the Artemis program and all of its other vital scientific exploratory activities. You know what I would say on that, Mike? I say
What's
no.
that?
NASA does nothing but waste money. They pick contractors who can't develop stuff. They base stuff on technology that's 20, 30 years old. I don't have any faith in NASA to do anything, tell you the truth. And if anything, NASA needs a complete reboot from the ground up to make it an effective budget respective agency that can actually get stuff done. Maybe that includes bringing more along of SpaceX and delegating more of the responsibilities of NASA to companies that actually get stuff done.
Yeah, Elon Musk might be appointed by the new administration.
Yep.
That's a possibility.
Oh, yeah. We must not fall behind rival nations, particularly China in space exploration, diplomacy, and development. However, which we are. Look at the space station that was brought up by China. Look how much China's putting into it. Look what China's been doing rather than going ahead and throwing all this money for like what the United States has done for the last, 40 years into war after war after war in the Middle East, now in Eastern Europe.
Oh, yeah. Ongoing.
No wonder why we don't have money to invest in this stuff. We're throwing it into endless wars. And so, yeah, that is giving China the opportunity to go well beyond the capabilities of the United States. And I hope that changes.
Yeah, I agree.
Next.
We'll see. Go ahead.
Section E. Develop and deploy dedicated instruments to detect and gather data on UAP. Whether NASA studies celestial objects and phenomena, planets and black holes and galaxies, it does so with equipment that has been developed specifically for such tasks. If NASA had to study space with data collected from fighter cockpit cameras, radar and military installations and cell phones, very little good science could be done. Therefore, it's worth considering building instruments tailored to the study of UAP phenomenon. Doing so would be more costly than other recommendations described in my testimony. And again, NASA is facing very difficult budgetary considerations because they waste too much money. But I at least want to put together the concept forward in the unlikely event funding does become available, which I don't see NASA's funding going up. Do you, Mike?
No, oh, hell no.
No. Let's take it to the head of the Department of Government Efficiency. Conclusion. That's Elon Musk, by the way. The value of anomalies to science and public engagement. In closing, the topic of UAPs has captivated the public imagination for decades. Instead of vilifying or ridiculing those who are dared to study the phenomena, NASA and the scientific community as a whole should seize the singular opportunity to engage the public in a high-profile demonstration of the scientific method. Information should be gathered, and results should be studies, hypotheses made, and conclusions tested. Moreover, science is driven by anomalies. Anomalies are the foundation on which scientific breakthroughs are built. The theory of general relativity, quantum mechanics, virtually all of our scientific progress has been based on discovering and studying anomalies. This is why the studies of UAP should be embraced, since whatever is occurring, the chance to garner new knowledge should never be shunned. We must be thorough in collecting information, fearless in making conclusions, and open to following the data, no matter how mundane or extraordinary the results may be. I began this testimony by praising the joint subcommittee members and their courage. I will end by echoing the sentiment. As the saying goes, the truth is out there. We just need to be bold enough and brave enough to face it. Wow. That's a tongue twister and a half, Mike.
No, you're right, Thomas. It really is. And he makes some really valid points and addresses a lot of the issues that should have been resolved already by now and haven't been.
Yeah.
Now, do you think by him speaking publicly and going on congressional record that with the way things currently are, and like you pointed out earlier, this is also a lame duck session of the current administration in the executive branch and Congress? Do you think anything is going to come from this that's going to move it forward progressively? I don't see it.
No.
He makes good points, but even with all of that, I don't see this having any major impact or changing things as it currently is within our government.
No, Mike, we're not trying to be the negative Nancy's out there. We're just trying to point out the truth. I mean, heck, we have an insider who's been invited to the hearing, who has the ability to go and sit in chambers and watch the hearing. But you know what? He's not even going to be going. He's going to be sitting it out because this looks like a nothing burger hearing. And they're just going to go hang out with that unannounced, what do you call it? Session from the reception for the Senate that's going to be taking place at 5 p.m. on Wednesday.
Right after the UAP hearing.
Yeah. Well, not right after it, but kind of after it. But either way, it should be pretty interesting.
It should be. Don't we have a document to show the audience on that?
I'm looking for it right now, my friend. I'm looking for it. I thought I had it here. Nope, not there, not there. Not there. Oh, it's got to be over here. Wrong one. Okay. Give me a second. I've got a bunch of attachments here to bring up. There we go.
Yeah.
I got it.
Perfect.
So, what are we talking about here? We are talking about a Senate reception for, get this one out of here. Get this one out of here too. Sorry about this, so I can focus on this one here and get it right. We're talking about a Senate reception for advanced UAP disclosure following the House oversight hearing. When is it going to be? It's going to be Wednesday, November 13th from 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. in the Dirksen Senate Office Building. Apparently, it looks like it's being presented by the UAP Disclosure Fund, Mike.
It is. And it's also an exclusive by invitation only, which requires approval for any of the attendees to participate in, right?
Yeah.
And we are aware of certain attendees that will be present at this reception.
Yes, we are.
Yes, we will.
Well, it seems like Mike Rounds is going to be there, former Rear Admiral Timothy Gallaudet, and others. So all the people who are testifying, I believe, are going to be part of this reception, as well as potentially Marco Rubio and others from the Senate to go ahead and talk about it. I wonder if Gillibrand's going to be there.
I don't know if she'll be there, but there's going to be a lot of other lawmakers from the UAP caucus that are going to be present. There's going to be members of the military that are going to be present, and members of the mainstream media or media participants that are covering this. Probably George Knapp. Well, wait. Jeremy Corbell, because we heard that George Knapp may not be present for this hearing.
Yeah.
So, which is it's an interesting sign.
Right.
about what this hearing is going to be.
Now, coming out of this, out of all the things we've heard, there's nothing really new coming out at this hearing at this point.
Not that I've heard so far. It seems to be everything that's been publicly mentioned, talked about in interviews, in articles. This is nothing that the public has not heard before in any shape or form. The only difference between what they're saying now and what they've said publicly is that it's part of the official congressional record. They're under oath, and they face certain liabilities if any of the statements turns out to be not true. Other than that, it's exactly the same thing as it's been already.
Yes.
You're right.
Yes, that's true. That's true. And one thing I do want to bring out, there are rumors going around, and it's literally a rumor. I'm not going to hold any weight to it whatsoever. But there is a rumor that there will be a mystery witness that's going to pop up tomorrow. I mean, on Wednesday. Don't hold your breath to it. There's been always a lot of rumors that come out that don't get there. We'll see what happens. But you never know. There could be that mystery witness there. And if the person is in fear for their life, they could do an anonymous testimony from within a room where they're not showing who they are in the halls of Congress, Mike.
No, I agree, Thomas. But as you and I are well aware of, it's going to be a tight schedule. And they have 4, unlike last year where they only had 3, witnesses scheduled to testify. We covered a majority of the actual testimony that's going to happen live on Wednesday. And it is going to be so packed with information within a limited time frame.
Especially Shellenberger's 14 freaking pages.
Oh, absolutely. Plus, you're not including in that the questions and answers that are going to occur from the lawmakers after this testimony. So that's going to take more time. I severely doubt that there's going to be anybody they're going to try to shoehorn or squeeze in there on top of all of this. It's not bloody likely, to be honest. It's just a theory, speculation, and rumor. That's all it is. Nothing beyond that.
Yeah.
This is more than enough. I mean, listen, we scratched the surface of this and not completely or fully, and we blew through 2 hours of just touching on their testimony. What do you think it's going to be like in D.C. at the actual hearing with questions and answers? It's going to go a lot longer than that. So,
well, Shellenberger's testimony, even that statement, is probably going to go close to an hour just for him to get through those 14 pages.
At least, what, another half hour, 45 minutes of questions after
Potentially, that? But you have 3 other people, Elizondo and the others. Each one's probably going to be about 15 minutes for their statements. So 15, 30, 45, an hour. I mean, oh, God.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no way they're going to be able to get through all this.
No, not in a tight time frame.
No
way.
Not at all. Yeah, exactly.
It's probably going to go longer than the last hearing did, obviously, for obvious reasons. But with that, there's no way that they're going to squeeze anybody else in on what's been publicly announced. There's no room.
There's no time
for it.
There's no time for it.
Right, exactly.
But, we just have to chalk that up to the rumor mill. People will always come up with rumors. They have hopes and dreams that, well...
It's wishful thinking mostly on their part.
Yeah.
Which is okay. Listen, that's fine. If it gives them hope, then they're more than welcome to think whatever they like.
Yeah.
But we're covering the nuts and bolts and the reality of what the actual hearing is going to be.
Yeah, now we do have a couple people in the back with their hand. Hey, Thomas, we have a couple people in the back with their hands up. Laura Campbell, you have your hand up.
Yes, I was going to talk about the fact, well, they could run over, and also the questions, that's the wild card. What questions are asked? For example, Michael Gold. Wouldn't it be wonderful if somebody redirected the NASA topic and asked him more specifically about Robert Bigelow, whom he worked for, and get a little bit into transferring of materials from Lockheed to Bigelow Industries and how that fell through.
Right, and you have to ask a question. In all that stuff coming from Gold, all he did was talk NASA. He mentioned OSAP in one little piece, but it seemed like he left the important parts about what Bigelow Aerospace, which apparently appears to be a lot more than was ever done at NASA, out of the equation. I have to wonder why.
Yes, that would be amazing if somebody could ask that. That's what I'm hoping for.
Well, fingers crossed on that one, Laura. Brian, you have your hand up, my friend.
Yeah, good evening. I know you're wrapping it down here, but if we don't get a surprise witness, that's fine too. But there could also be surprise written testimony interjected, not necessarily basically into the record. So that could always be a possibility too, coming from somebody else, that they will provide statements for the record as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me remind you real quick, Brian. Last year at the hearing, George Knapp attempted to do exactly that. And if you remember, it failed. It did not happen. I don't think that, considering they only had 3 witnesses last year, and now they have 4, and it's going to be, as you heard by us covering Michael Shellenberger's testimony alone, there's not going to be any time for them to go beyond what's already been scheduled. That Thomas and I are aware of.
No, and you can see Thomas's face. He's 100% right. There's barely time for opening statements.
Yeah.
But it's also very rare for something to be rejected into the record. And so I found that odd last time too from Knapp. So hopefully they can get over that, what should be a minor hurdle to put something in the record.
Now, don't forget, this is November, and they're talking about having another hearing in the January-February timeframe, right, Brian?
February 2025, Brian, correct?
Yes.
Well, some people have said January. You heard a little bit later, we heard February. So let's call it in the first quarter of 2025, the first 3 months.
Yeah, that came straight from the horse's mouth, if you will.
Oh, yeah. It definitely did. It definitely did.
Now, here's the good news, Brian. We have talked about, including with you on the show many times, that with the degree and level of that they're covering this up, obfuscation, and it's been a long show. And as far as what they've been hiding this entire time for decades, you have pointed out in the past that if they were to attempt to try to get to the bottom of things by instituting a second type of church committee like they did back in 75 with the CIA, that would probably move the ball forward and remove a lot of the obstacles that we've been facing up against. It seems like behind the scenes that with subsequent hearings, they are attempting to move in the direction of a second type of church committee.
Well, they wanted to get a select committee on UAPs to start to go to that point, but it was shut down by the head of the House of Representatives.
The Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson.
So we'll see where that goes, and it's just hopes. If hopes and dreams were peaches and creams, we'd all be 300 pounds.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, but no, look, everyone has wishful thinking. Everyone has theories and speculation because everybody's frustrated, and for good reason. They have every right to be. But if things start to finally move in a positive direction and we start to get more of the truth, at the very least, if we were at least got confirmation that we're not alone on this earth, that would be a step in the right direction. And we may be heading in that direction. Right, Thomas?
Yes. And do me a favor before the show, when the show ends, don't let anyone else in the back until I have a chance to talk to people in the back first, okay?
Absolutely.
All right, here we go. All right. What a great show. What a great audience, friends. We've had a lot of people. Remember, if you've had a good time so far, do us a favor. Give us a thumbs up. And if not, give us a thumbs down. We'll tweak one or the other. If you haven't subscribed yet, do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Would love to have you here as a regular on Disclosure tonight. Hopefully, I'm just not talking here for this last 2 hours for shits and giggles. And hopefully, we can get some people to give us some thumbs up and a like and subscribe for that matter. On that note, I want to go ahead and thank everybody for your love and support of everything we do here at Disclosure tonight. More importantly, I want to thank the people who have given us some super chats tonight. Who am I talking about? I want to thank Anonymous Rex, FaZe Will, Wildcat Mahone, Metal Gaming, and Laura Campbell. More importantly, I want to thank our friends who have been in the chats tonight. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about AK, Anonymous Rex, Bradley, Firefly, Jake, Jan, Jason Brown, J-Cat, Kathy, Kelly Burrell, and those piercing blue eyes, Kevin Jewell, King Bull, Neil Morgan, Pete Liebel, Shelley Montgomery, T. Colgan, Two Head 666, UFO Busters, Australia Show, Tim Mothman, and Yell Tommy Tanker, also known as Andy, and Yankee 58. How about that? More importantly, I want to thank their friends in the back of the show today that... No. The friends in the back today who have asked us questions. I want to thank Brian Pemble. Thanks for coming out today, Brian.
Hey, better late than never. Great show. I was listening the whole time. Look forward to this week.
Thank you, sir. Corporal Abe, thanks for coming out, my friend.
Happy Veterans Day, America. Thanks, Thomas. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you for my
Thanks,
father,
Dave.
who is also a veteran. Happy Veterans Day back for you again, my friend. Fraserman's, actually, no, Laura Campbell. Thanks for coming out today, Laura.
Oh, it was wonderful show again. Thank you for all the information.
You better believe it. What a great audience. What a great time. I also want to thank Mike Disclosure. Thanks for coming out today, Mike. What a great opportunity to hang out with our audience.
Oh, it absolutely was. I think we had a great show for everybody. We gave them a preview before the actual live hearing in D.C. On Wednesday, and it was a lot of fun. So thank you for the effort that you put into it. You made it look easy, my friend.
Oh, I got my tongue twisted a little bit here and there, but you know what? We made it through it. How about that?
It was fun.
Oh, it was, absolutely. Thanks for everything, my friends. And as we usually say at the end of every episode of Disclosure tonight, eyes open, no fear, be safe, everyone, but...
Go back to Party City where you belong.
Absolutely. We'll catch you on the flip side. Good night, everybody. I'll come back now here. See you soon. Bye-bye.